Hey NHS, welcome to our Newmarket High School University information presentation for the fall of 2020 and for the graduating class of June 2021. I'm Mr. Ward. I'm going to be walking through this presentation with you. We'll take a look at a bit about why you might choose a university, choosing a program itself, selecting a university after once you've figured out your program, the application process and a little bit of information on that, just to touch upon that. Some supplemental information and some important dates as you go throughout this grade 12 year. I know it's going to be a different year for many of us, but hopefully we can work through this together and hopefully you have a great year. So with that being said, why might you choose to go to university? Now some of you might already actually know the specific career or have a specific goal in mind that you will require a university education for. Others, it's okay as well. You don't necessarily know exactly yet what you would like to do, and that's fine, but you're starting out the research process now. Some of you have maybe a passion for learning, or you love academic and theoretical learning. So as you've gone through your high school career here and through the university pathway, it's very theory based, and you want to extend that learning into post-secondary. You're able to complete the majority of your work independently. As you move into university, you may get into a situation where you're in a lecture hall of 300 people and may not know many people. Maybe you have to start working on those communication pieces and working with other people, but you may have to just also work very independently. So if you're already really good at that, possibly university is a good choice for you. And you also have 70 to 75% minimum average in 6 U or M level courses, including prerequisites. So we handed out this week credit counseling summaries, or I think actually it was last week. We handed out credit counseling summaries to the grade 12 class. On that credit counseling summary, you'll have a list of courses you are taking this year. If you take a look at those 6 courses and you are planning to go to university and do not have 6 U or M level courses on your timetable for this coming year, please make a guidance appointment as soon as you can, and we will work with you to look at what we can do to help you get those 6th or however many or another U or M level course on your timetable. And that includes prerequisites as well. So if you're researching a program and you notice you don't have the prerequisite for that program, also come on down to guidance or book an appointment through Teach Assist this year, and we can help you find a way to get that prerequisite for the course. On the right hand side here, you have some university terminology. So faculty, it's just basically an umbrella term for a department of learning. So we have had some examples there, like Faculty of Arts, Applied Science and Engineering. Again, those just are an umbrella term for certain specific programs, and that's the next one here, program, within that faculty. So the program itself is a specific area of study within that faculty. So for example, if you're looking at taking applied science, if you're applying to the faculty of applied science and engineering, you might be actually in the program of mechanical engineering, right? And that just tells you a set of courses that you're going to need to take which will lead to a degree. And that's the next thing we're going to kind of talk about here is the types of degrees. So many of you, actually, if not all of you, will start out university as undergraduate students. You'll be working towards a bachelor degree. That typically takes 4 years to complete. There are some 3-year degrees out there, but in general, a bachelor degree will take 4 years to complete. On the right-hand side here, we have some examples of bachelor degrees, right? You have a Bachelor of Arts. Typically, if you're getting a Bachelor of Arts, you're looking at some sort of humanities, philosophy, like a social science, so geography or history. You might specialize in, let's say, psychology. Maybe you applied to the program at a university for psychology. and you work towards throughout those 4 years in your bachelor degree, or as in your undergraduate studies, working towards psychology, but your degree at the end of the year or the end of those 4 years will still be a Bachelor of Arts. Same thing goes for Bachelor of Science. You might be more of computer science based or mathematics based, but your degree at the end of those 4 years will be a Bachelor of Science. You also have Bachelor of Fine Arts, right? Visual arts and music and drama. Right, so those are some few examples. On the left-hand side here, as we come back, you have professional degrees. So those are basically just, you're now specializing within a little bit further in an actual profession. So, the example is Bachelor of Science. Now you're looking at specializing in the profession of nursing, right? Or Bachelor of Commerce, and you're in business, and in certain types of business you have accounting and economics, right? Those would be considered to be professional degrees. Now, what if I wanted to become, let's say, a dentist or a lawyer or a teacher? We also consider those to be professional degrees, but you also may have to earn an additional bachelor degree on top of your 4 years. So, for example, if you're looking to become a lawyer, you'll have to earn a 4-year degree and then possibly a 3-year degree after that, right? You also have to probably write your LSAT as you're going through. Same thing with a teacher, right? You won't have to write an LSAT, but you'll have to earn an undergrad degree, and then you'll take a 2-year Bachelor of Education. If you're looking to become a doctor, you might also have to write an MCAT. But you'll have to start researching those professions now for specific interests, or those interests with specific details now, because as you're going through, I mean, once you're into your undergrad degree, you can always start there as well, but if you have an idea at the moment or a plan or long-term goals, it's easier to start now researching those professions and what you need in terms of bachelor degrees or master's degrees to get there, right? So it's important that you start that research now. And speaking of master's degrees, so that's the next slide we're going to take a look at here, is the graduate studies. Once you've completed that bachelor degree, and let's say you would like to continue on in your learning, many of those students will work towards a master's degree in their field of study. A master's degree will typically take 2 years. If you're looking to obtain a PhD or a doctorate, sometimes those will be an additional, 5 to 7 years. So that's, when we're talking about setting up goals and researching what you would like to do, that's part of this, right? The timeline in terms of how long it will take, and how long also sometimes equals how much money it might take, right, over time. So you'll have to start researching now. So on the right-hand side, you have some examples, right? Masters of Arts, just general, Master of Engineering, Master of Science, a PhD, right, would be a doctorate. But those are some general examples of possible graduate studies you can move on to after your undergraduate degree. But like I mentioned already, all of you will be entering some sort of, if you decide to go to university, an undergraduate program. So, now that let's say you've chosen to go to university, you need to start thinking about choosing a program, right? So you can start by thinking about what you're kind of good at, right? What skills do you have that you can bring to some sort of career in the future? What are your interests along with that? Perhaps you're really good at something, but you're not necessarily interested in that, right? So you might have to have a nice blend of what you're good at and then what you're interested in doing. The other part of this is you have to kind of consider what career or lifestyle you want in your long-term goals. You're going to be setting up short-term goals here in the future to get up to those long-term goals, but what do you want out of a lifestyle or a career, right? What is that long-term goal that you have in mind? So you can start by visiting the site, the Ontario University's info, to browse universities and programs. I don't have a slide in here about what I'm going to talk about now, but the other thing you can use is My Pathway Planner. So My Pathway Planner has a tool. If you go to your high school planner, has a tool that will show you specifically what you're eligible for. So using that, we'll take the specific courses that you have in your plan and then show you using that. We'll take any prerequisites that you have in there and show programs that you're eligible for. Sometimes students that have no real idea where to start, they can use that as an initial tool to say, oh, I'm eligible for this program, and it kind of gets the ball rolling, right? It gets us started. But if you already have an idea, and you're just looking for different types of programs in universities, then Ontario University's Info is a great site. It's commonly used, right? So ontariouniversitiesinfo.ca/programs is where you can kind of take a look at the programs themselves. So that's what we're going to do next here, is we're going to take a look at that website. So I type in ontariouniversitiesinfo.ca, it brings me to this landing page. So this is the home page for that website. So at the top here you have programs, universities, you have finance, applications. There's all sorts of information on here for you to use. So we're going to click on programs, and it'll bring me to this page. So on the right hand side here, you have find a program. Within here, there's search options. So if you click this, it'll show advanced search options, so you can kind of filter out certain types of things if you want, or get more specific as you go. So for this sake here, I've actually just typed in economics as a keyword, and this has given me 140 programs to kind of look through here. For the presentation's sake, I just clicked on the first program here, so accounting, 4 years at University of Ottawa. French immersion is available. So if I click on accounting, it'll bring me to that specific program. Now I've kind of pasted here a few screenshots of the specific information that you have. So the initial one here on the left-hand side here is an overview. So this will give me what university, what type of degree I'll be earning. So in this case here, I'm specializing in accounting, right? But the Bachelor of Commerce is the degree I would be getting. So, as a professional degree, like I mentioned earlier, right? So you're specializing in accounting, but the degree overall is a Bachelor of Commerce. The OUAC program code. So I will talk about this a little later, but you'll need that when you go to apply. If you're saying you're applying to this program, you need to write that down and make sure you have that when you go to apply. So that's the overview. If I click on requirements now, it'll take me over to this side, the right-hand side of the page here, and it'll show me some prerequisites that I would need to take. So for this program specifically, I would need to take grade 12 English, functions, and calculus, and then I would need another 3 additional U or M level courses. Remember back to earlier on, I was talking about 6. You need 6 U or M level courses. So in this case here, this accounting program, they would include these prerequisites, right, plus your next top 3 to create an average. And we'll talk a bit about admission averages later and how some universities calculate them. But you would need 6 URM level courses, and then these 3 at least would need to be in your timetable. Next part of this is it'll take you to the university website or program website if you'd like. So if I click on program website, I'm probably just going to get a bit more specific information about the program itself. So this is now taking me to the accounting program website or web page at the University of Ottawa. So this will give me a little bit of information about maybe in the actual program. Again, some more admissions information here. So we in guidance always say you can use the Ontario University Info website as a starting point, and it gives you information, and it is connected to universities. So in that sense that it always is updated quite often. But if you're wanting the most up-to-date information, it's always important possibly to go straight to the source. So if I'm looking to go into this program here, I would call the University of Ottawa itself and say, hey, how do you calculate averages? What do I need for prerequisites, right? Just to make sure before you go ahead and apply, or before you continue on here this year, if you need to pick up another prerequisite and make a guidance appointment so we can take a look at what we can do for you, right? There's all sorts of things that may change if some of the prerequisites are not there, or let's say you don't have the admission average to get in. So make sure you are researching and going straight to the source as well, right? It's a good starting point, this website, ontariouniversitiesinfo.ca, but it's also important that you do some research yourself in terms of speaking with the university. So you've selected we've gone through choosing a program. You've taken a look at types of programs at different universities, and you've decided, okay, I'd like to do this field of study. Now that you have that in mind, it's time to kind of start selecting a university itself. And there's many options and there's many things that go into selecting a university. as you can see here on this slide. So, you have academic programs. We just kind of spoke a bit about those, right? Do they have the academic program itself, the campus, the location size, scholarship opportunities, sports and recreation, student services, career prep, commuter residence, right? Co-op opportunities. All those are part of selecting a university. So we're going to kind of go through a few of these as we go through the presentation, and then we'll start with academic programs and co-op and career prep. Academic programs, do they offer what I want to study? I know some students will have in mind, or they've known they have a friend, or they have a brother, or they have a sibling, or a family member that has gone on to a certain university, and they have that university now they would like to go to, but possibly they don't offer the program, right? So you're taking a look at the program that you want, and then, okay, does this university offer what I want to study? Do I have the prerequisites for this program? I already mentioned it a bit again, but do you have the prerequisites to get into the program itself? Do you need to make a guidance appointment to take a look at adding the proper courses so that you can get into the program, or possibly changing the field of study that you're looking at because you don't have the prerequisites? Do I want to continue with graduate studies? Some schools might have a great undergrad program, but then may not offer a graduate study program, right? So they may not offer a master's degree in that undergrad or a doctorate. So that's part of it, right? Do I want to go to a university for both my undergrad and a graduate studies? Do I want just to go for an undergrad and not worry about a graduate studies? Do I want to go to an undergrad at one school and another, right? So these are some of the questions you have to start asking yourself, right? And researching as you go through the academic programs. Do they offer a possible graduate study at that same university? On the right-hand side here, you have co-op and career preparation. Can I gain experience and get paid? So you'll notice that on that accounting that accounting program we looked at, the co-op was an availability. Some students will like to go to a four-year degree and may not have a co-op opportunity. It'll just be strictly theoretical learning throughout. You'll be going just to a lecture or in school classes or in lecture classes. You won't have that experience of outside the classroom. You can gain experience and get paid at the same time. Are there internship opportunities over the summer, right? Whether it be does the university help you? Does the university help you look for those opportunities? Are there employment services for students? I know many universities try to make sure that their students are employed, right? So does the university itself offer those students to help them find a good career afterwards, right? So those things kind of go hand in hand a little bit, and what would you like out of an academic program itself at that university? Location and size. Do I like larger cities or smaller cities? Do I want to go to a large university with a large campus, or affiliate campus, or a small campus, right? Do you want to go to a large university where you might be one of, let's say, 300 or more in a lecture hall, or would you like to go to a smaller university with a smaller campus, and maybe you possibly have closer connections with your peers, closer tight-knit university community? It's really what you would like, right, in terms of large or small. And that kind of goes along with possibly visiting the campus. So on the right-hand side here, we have visiting campus. I know this year things are different. Typically in the past, we would strongly recommend that you visit the university. I know down here I have what is the feeling you have on campus. I know some students will select a university without ever visiting it, and then once they get there, they say, oh, I'm not sure I totally, I mean, maybe the academics are great, but maybe just the way the university is, like the feeling that you have there is not what you need, right? So we always in the past have strongly recommended visiting campuses, but at this point in time, I know many, and we'll talk about, again, this later in the presentation, but many of the campus tours and the open houses for this year have been canceled, right, due to public health guidelines. So there are many there are many virtual open houses that are being offered, I know it's not the same as, let's say, visiting the campus. So if you're able to and feel comfortable, I mean, and can follow public health guidelines, I still think probably visiting the campus would be best. But again, I don't want to necessarily recommend that at a time where there's lots of things going on, right? So if you're able to, great. But at the moment, you're probably going to, your best bet is to be looking at virtual open houses at this point in time. But it does give you a possible feel of what you would like. Commute or residence, right? So that kind of goes hand in hand a little bit with the larger and small a little bit, right? Do I want to live at home? How will I commute? Do I want to live in residence? Can I afford it? Both have a bit of affordability in there, right? Do I want to live at home? Commuting, do I have to maybe get a bus pass? Do I have to start taking the train? Do I have to buy a car? That's another expense. What are the expenses of buying a car, getting a bus pass, or using the train to get somewhere and staying closer to home versus, let's say, going to a residence? Because residence will be a costly thing. Can you afford that? And now this portion of this selecting university has changed over the past year, right? In terms of what's going on. Some students might want to be closer to home now instead of being further away, just for safety reasons, right? So it's all what you're comfortable with and what you would like, but you have to take into consideration the financial part of this in terms of, can I afford either staying at home or going to residence? Sports and recreation. Maybe some of you are aspiring to play varsity sports, whether that's basketball, football, hockey, right? Does the university I'm looking at offer the ability to play varsity sports? Does the university offer recreational opportunities? Maybe you don't want to play varsity sports, but you still want to play varsity or intramural hockey or intramural baseball, just to stay active. Do they offer that? What about dance, yoga? Same thing. Does the university offer those opportunities? Will I be able to exercise? Does the university have facilities I can access? Or will you have to go off campus to access those? I know some universities you're able to use student fees to pay for facilities, but some universities don't have those types of facilities, right? And you do have to go off campus for exercise. So again, questions if that's important to you, something that you might have to consider as you're selecting a university. Student services. Am I able to access extra help, right? I know there are many study skills workshops, success coaching. I know at the university I was at, there was a grammar person, right? So, do you have that? Are you able to access those services to help you as you're going through your undergraduate degree? Academic or career advising. Is there a counterpart for me or us as guidance counselors at the university you're going to? Typically there is, to help you, again, pick courses as you're going throughout your bachelor's degree, or to help you kind of specialize in what you would like. Maybe you want to major or minor or something like that. You might need help selecting courses. Do they offer that? Is the university accessible, right? Do they have academic accommodations for you? These are all things, again, that you might want to take in consideration while you are selecting that university. And the key always comes back to, here on the right-hand side, is research, right? You have to research all these things. You have to research everything. You might think you've done enough, or you might think, okay, I've done these 3 things, and then you get there and think, oh, they don't have the study success or success coaching or something that you were looking to be offered there. You can talk to parents, friends, teachers, and family friends, but you cannot just rely on this information only. Perhaps you do have a family friend that really loved Western, or they loved a certain type of university, but and that's all the information you rely on. Then you get there and it's not really for you, right? So it's really up to you to find that information. Again, I mentioned this already, but check the university's website or call for accurate information. You can go through that Ontario University's website, info.ca, but again, it's always important that you actually check with the university itself to get the most up-to-date information. And then down here, right, the only person responsible for your university application is you. It's not your parents, it's not your friends, it's not your teacher. It's really up to you to be responsible to research and make sure what you're going into is what you want to do, right? Again, people's minds change. But once you get into university, it could be possibly an expensive change, right? So the more research you can do now to prepare yourself for whether you would like that certain career or lifestyle or this certain type of program, the better it will be, right? So make sure you are the only person, again, responsible for that application is you. So I kind of talked about this already, but some university requirements. Acceptance is based on those 6 U or M level courses. Those prerequisites are included. Now here's where I'm going to talk a bit about calculating averages, right? So I mentioned it earlier, but calculating averages can be different between certain universities. So one university might say, yes, you need English and functions and calc within your prerequisites, and that's part of the average that we calculate. Others will say, we want to see that you've taken English, functions, and calculus, but then we'll just take your top 6 grade 12 URM level marks as it is, right? So sometimes those universities don't necessarily release that information, so that's why we say it's very important for you to call and get the most accurate information and ask, right, how do some universities calculate averages? Because that's an important feature to this. Conditional offers will state averages you must maintain. So once you receive an offer, within that offer, it will likely say you'll have to maintain a certain average and a certain cutoff, right? And it's important to be at that cutoff, and obviously if you can be even higher, great, right? But again, those offers will contain an average that you'll have to maintain if you receive one. So now we're going to talk a bit about the application process. We have a specific presentation a little bit later on in the year. It's typically in November, about applying and goes through the exact process of how to apply. So we're just going to touch upon it a bit here, and as we go through the presentation. So you as an undergrad student, you'll be applying and your current Ontario high school student will be using the 101 application to apply to universities. There are certain, on the OUAC, Ontario University's Application Center website, you can apply to other things as you go through, but as a current high school student, you will be using that 101 application. You'll receive information from OUAC with your school number, student number, and what we call a PIN number in mid-November. Now we are still, especially with everything being mostly virtual this year, there's still a discussion a bit about how this information is going to be sent out to you. So we're still working on that, but it's the deadline is still at least mid-November here, right? So we're still keeping that as a timeline for you to receive that PIN number. Hopefully we can get a little bit maybe earlier, but I know there are some things in the background at the moment. You must keep that PIN number confidential, right? So that's not for somebody else, because essentially you can use that PIN to apply to with, right? So that PIN number is yours. If you lose that PIN number for whatever reason, you can always contact your guidance counselor to retrieve the PIN number, right? So if you lost it for whatever reason, just always contact guidance, and we can help you out with that. So write down the program code. So that program code that I talked about in the accounting, right? So it was the OTC, right? So actually, I'm just going to go back. Sorry, just to show you, right? So I'm circling here right now the OUAC program code. So that's what we're talking about here. So for this one, it's the OTC. I'm going to need that, right, when I apply. So when I go on to apply and pick my programs, it will ask you to input that program code to apply, right? Again, you'll apply online at OUAC using the 101 application, and then you'll prepare it all online, and then you'll also pay online. So there's no process with, you're all through the Ontario University's Application Center, okay, and all online. It's $150 for 3 choices. That's programs or universities. So if you decide to add more to that, it's $50 for each additional choice. So for example, if you add another 2 additional programs, you're going to have to pay $100 in addition to the base application. So then now you're paying $250. Okay, so and that's why we talk about research, because you do have some students that will kind of, you can apply quite a bit, but it becomes expensive, right? So if you're able to pick or narrow down your choices, the better for you in terms of financially, right? You can withdraw a choice if you'd like, and then add another choice at the same time, or the same institution. So if it's the same institution, so same university, you can do that. You can withdraw and then add at no cost. So if you're adding another program somewhere else, or another university, then you will have to pay the $50. But if you're withdrawing and then just another program at that university, then there's no cost. Payments are non-refundable, and they can be made online with debit or credit card. There's also internet bill payment services. And what's important here is your application will not be processed until that payment is received. So we've had students in the past apply, say we have applied, but forgot to pay, and that application never went through, right? So they will not be processed until that payment is received. So once you've made your choices and you've filled it out, make sure that payment takes place. So at the beginning of November, we in guidance will be sending a one-time release of identifying information from all students in grade 12 to both Ontario University's Application Centre and OCAS, Ontario College Application Service, to support those secondary applications. So that will include, right, all your final grades from completed grade 11 and 12 courses. So if you were not taken out of a course before the full disclosure date, that initial application will include all of those courses, so whether you were successful or unsuccessful. It will also include a list of your all current year courses and programs. So it'll show what you're currently taking, and then what you're planning on taking in, say, second semester, right? If you want more information about this transmission that takes place initially, you can always contact your guidance counselor for a bit more information. Okay, so on top of the initial application process, you also might have what they call supplemental applications. So some universities may require you to give them additional information to complete that application. This might include, right, an interview possibly. Okay, maybe they want you to update a resume. I know some of our fine arts programs will ask for maybe possibly an audition, reference letters. And there may also be some non-refundable extra costs with supplemental applications. So I know there are some programs that you'll have to pay for an extra $40 or $50 on top of your application itself, as a faculty fee for those supplemental applications, because they'll be the faculty themselves will be the ones going through that, right? So keep that in mind as you're going through here. Typically, we see a lot of supplemental application in a lot of arts programs. If there are supplemental applications, read what is being asked of you very carefully. Comb through everything. It might say something is optional. It may say, okay, it's an optional essay, but you should really submit it. If there is something that's optional, submit it. It may help your cause. Meet all deadlines, right? They will give you a deadline for all these other. So if they're looking for a resume, if they're looking for this essay, are they looking for a paragraph? Sometimes it's a paragraph on your character and things like that. So you have to meet these deadlines that they're requiring you to meet, or asking those to be placed by. It's just like if there's a deadline for the application itself. If you need reference letters, ask those references well in advance if they would like to support you. Give them some lead, so give those references some lead time, whether if that's even writing the reference letter itself, or just if you're asking them as a reference to begin with, right? To give them lead time and to prepare if someone's going to be calling or asking them, right? Or if you're asking for that letter, give them lead time to create that letter for them, for you. Create a professional email. in many cases, we'll talk about separate accounts on the side here, but when you are adding these supplemental applications in, you'll need to create a separate account with the university itself, and in coming with that, you'll have to probably use an email. So you can't really use your Wired ESB student email, because that basically closes once you graduate. So you're going to have to create a professional email going forward. If you need transcripts, typically if you're applying through OUAC, again, like I said, they have all your grade 11 and 12 marks, so you don't necessarily need transcripts, but some supplemental applications do require them. So if you need a transcript, you can always come down to guidance or give us a call in guidance, or email one of us now, and we can provide you with that. But you'll have to provide us with at least 2 days notice before we can give that to you. So like I mentioned, again, separate accounts. So to upload all these resumes, possibly interview questions or essays, the university itself may require you to create an account during that application process to upload everything into their own system. They would probably then they would start contacting you through that account with those interview dates, those audition dates. So again, it all comes back to you carefully reading what they're asking of you, right, and meeting all those deadlines, because it's very important, especially with these supplemental applications. Special education requirements. So if you have an IEP and you would like to carry that IEP on to the university level, you're going to have to contact your university support center itself to kind of book an appointment and get that set up so that you're able to bring the required documents that you need. You're going to need to bring your most up-to-date, you're going to need to bring your most up-to-date IEP and psychological report, right? And then some universities need a real current psych assessment. So check as you're making that appointment with your university support center, how current that psych assessment has to be. Okay. Create a transitional portfolio. So in October here, you'll probably receive your most up-to-date IEP from your CERT, your special education resource teacher, and keep that in some sort of portfolio of important documents, whether that's with your psych report, your psych assessment, and your IEP, anything else you might need to take to the university to say, I want to continue with my IEP at the university level, or at least academic. It may not necessarily be the IEP itself, but academic accommodations. Then you're going to need to keep those important documents. There are some possible grants. OSAP, the Ontario Student Assistance Program, does offer some grants to cover technology or assistive equipment costs. So it also may be as well to update a psychological report if needed. So I know some of those psychological assessments can be very expensive. So if you're needing to get another one to be more current, there are some grants out there that could be offered. If you have more questions about this, you can always ask us in guidance, or you can ask your special education resource teacher. Out of province applications. So if you're planning to apply to somewhere else outside of Ontario, whether that's, let's say, the world or another province in Canada, you're going to have to apply to the individual university itself. So the biggest part of this, though, is some will access your grades through OUAC. Once you apply through OUAC, you'll get what they call a reference number, an OUAC reference number. So places like Bishops, UBC, Calgary, Dalhousie, McGill, they will use that reference number then to pull your grades from OUAC. So essentially, you'll have to apply to OUAC first. So you make sure you have some choices in Ontario, and then if you're looking to go to some place like McGill and apply, you have to apply individually through that university. But when you're applying, they'll probably ask for that OUAC reference number so they can access your grades. Same thing for out of country, right? You can apply directly to the university itself. You'll have to watch all deadlines and requirements as you would be with your OUAC application. But this one in particular, right, because it's a more, let's say, an individual university basis or a case-by-case basis, you have to make sure you're taking a look at those deadlines because they're going to be different than what they are in Ontario. And again, like I mentioned on the last slide, transcripts require, or a couple of slides ago, if you're looking for a transcript, let's say you're applying to a university that does not use your OUAC reference number for grades and they require a transcript for your grades, we do need 2 days of notice down in guidance, right? So if you need those transcripts, don't leave it too late. Get them now, right? Create a portfolio of documents that you'll need, let's say, going on to the future. It's kind of like has to do with a little bit about the supplemental information, supplemental applications. If you can create a portfolio of all those things already, now it's easier, and you're not stressing when you need them. Financial and deferrals. So financial matters, discuss with your family, right? Have your family set up, let's say, a registered education savings plan for you, or is there money there for you to go initially, right? Are you going to need OSAP? Is there a need for an OSAP, Ontario Student Assistance Program? It's essentially a loan you'll have to pay back, right? So there could be scholarships, interest scholarships, and it's going to be based on grades. But there's also other scholarships, community involvement and business. I know we had a student last year, right, that won quite a few of community involvement scholarships, and actually, well, even in our own system, they broke the system because we couldn't input. They had so many hours in the system, it didn't even go past 999, but they kept adding, right? So there are. I'm not saying you have to go and get 999 hours, but there are many scholarships that some people don't necessarily access, that don't even know about, right? That aren't necessarily just purely mark based, right? And then aim to reduce your debt load while in school. If you're able to work or have a part-time job, it's going to end up better in the long run for you. If you're able to reduce that debt load as you're going through school, if you're able to cope with the amount of academic work you have, plus work, right, it's going to be better, because if you are having to use a loan or some sort of, if you are accumulating some sort of debt, you're going to have to pay it back at some point. So if you're able to reduce that now, the better. Deferrals. So policies vary from university to university. Some will allow deferrals, some don't allow deferrals. I know it's becoming more of a hot topic now, especially with COVID-19 and some students asking for deferrals because the online learning and not necessarily want to learn online. So again, the policies vary from university to university. So when you're selecting possible a university and you want to know if they defer or you're able to defer, that might be a question that you ask and call and ask. If it's granted, some universities might request that you reapply after your gap year, right? So you might have to pay all those fees again. So the $150 for OUAC's initial application, even if it is you're just putting in the one, right? So, or even though you have the deferral itself and you're going to be going to the university, so they still might require that. So again, another question you might have to ask if you're looking for a deferral. And if you are interested in deferring admission, you have to contact the university directly for the most up-to-date information. We do get information down in guidance, and we go to these dialogues that give us some of this information. But again, especially now, things are changing so fast. It's best if you contact the university directly. Which brings us to university visits, fairs, and open houses. So I was researching this part for us here, and many of the in-person fairs, whether that's the Ontario Universities Fair, the Newmarket Post-Secondary Fair, there's all sorts of other fairs, but I know there's this one at St. Andrews College. All these things have been basically canceled this year because of what's been happening with COVID-19. So there's not many in-house open houses or campus tours or fairs I can reference you to. There are upcoming virtual open house dates, very recent here, October 3rd, October 4th, right? So the next week here or so, Trent, Waterloo, York University, University of Ottawa. You go to their website, and I've looked that up. There's a register button there. So if you're looking to, and also if you go to the Ontario Universities Info.ca and you look under the events on that website, it'll show you all the upcoming events, and whether it's a virtual campus tour, a virtual open house, a virtual meet with a rep, right? So there's all things are kind of transferring now from you visiting, right, to everything being virtual. So If you're seeking an opportunity to speak with a rep or see the university, most of it's going to happen virtually now through these open house dates. So if you're looking at one of these universities coming up, I suggest you maybe register sooner rather than later. And as we go, you can always come down to guidance. I'm going to be updating this as we go to. If you follow us on Instagram at NHS_guidance, or if you just stop by the guidance office, we can always kind of sit down and take a look at, or if you want, or over the phone, we can take a look at what's coming up in terms of virtual open house dates, right? So, so stay tuned. If your university's not there, you can always search it, or you can talk with us in guidance, and we can help you find a virtual open house date. Speaking of important dates, so these are some of the important dates for you as a grade 12 this year, going through this school year. So here, coming up here in 2020, in November 20th, this is the big major change this year. In the past, OUAC would only get or receive all final first semester grade marks. There's been a change over the summer, and OUAC is now wanting first semester midterm grades. So on November 20th, there will be a transmission. There's the initial transmission of your student information over, but on the November 20th, there will be a transmission of your first semester midterm grades. And that's where they'll start now. It'll be very early in the application process. Many of you may not have applied by then, but once you apply, let's say in December and beginning of January, or even at the end of November, they will have some of your grade 12 marks in there now. So now your application will involve both a bit of your grade 12 and grade 11 marks, depending on how many of those 6 grade 12U courses you have, right? So that's the big major change this year, is that OUAC will receive your first semester midterm grades. Full disclosure of your semester 1 grades is November 26th, so after that date, it'll always stay in your transcript. So if you are in a course where you need to, let's say you want to be dropped from the course, or you need to come out of, November 26th is your date to do that. Then we transfer into 2021. And January 15th is your deadline to complete your application. It's a quite hard deadline. There always is options to apply after, but the January 15th is a hard deadline to apply to university. You may still modify it after your submission, so that's why we say, apply as early as you can, because you can still modify it as you go, as long as you have an application in. Some students will wait till the very end and then not know what to apply for. Maybe they haven't done the research yet, and then it's too late, right? So if you're able to apply earlier, you can always modify it after your submission. You can't really modify it once, you can modify, but once you can't apply, let's say after that January 15th date. So that's a big one, January 15th, 2021. February 11th, OUAC receives all first semester grades. So after semester 1 is finished, we'll send another transmission on February 11th. That includes all your first semester grades and the final first semester grades. Then we're moving into semester 2, April 22nd, OUAC receives your second semester midterm grades, and then April 30th will be another important date for you, a full disclosure of semester 2 grades. That will now be, again, in semester 2, if you're looking to come out of a course, that will be the latest date you can do that by, or else it will stay on your transcript, whether you were successful or not. May 27th is the last day you can expect a response from an Ontario university. So as you are applying, you will receive responses from universities, and that may be an offered admission. Again, an offer, it's not an acceptance, right? Because you have to accept a little bit later if you'd like, but an offer of admission. Maybe it's a refusal, maybe it's a deferral depending on the receipt of specific information. So maybe it's a deferral for now until we see your second semester marks. It also could be a possible, not necessarily, it could be an offer of admission maybe to another program at that university, right? So there's May 27th is that last day you can expect a response from an Ontario university. And then the earliest date a student may be required to respond is June 1st. So if you get an offer, let's say in April or May or March or even earlier, we are seeing some that are offering earlier. June 1st is that earliest date that maybe the university will maybe, let's say, hey, I need a response now, right, and ask you to respond to an offer, right? You don't necessarily have to respond up until that date, but that's the earliest that they may start. That June 1st is the date that you need to respond, right, or at least respond to an offer by. And then July 6th, OUAC will receive a final second semester grade. So there'll be another transmission that goes out with all your final second semester grades on July 6th. Right? So those are your important dates to remember as you're going through here, and keep track of as you're thinking about applying to university. So last slide, just some parting thoughts. Right? Again, take responsibility for your further education. Only you are responsible for your university application and your post-secondary education and your future. Right? It's up to you to really start taking the reins of that and doing that. Create multiple plans. So, you have 3 options initially when you apply. Create plans for each option, right? Is there a plan A? Is this the university and program that I want to get into, but, I don't know if I have the averages just yet, but that's my main goal, right? Maybe plan B is a safe option where it's a university you like and you may not have the averages, but you do have the averages, right? And then plan C is something for sure you're going to be offered something, right? So create multiple plans within your application where you have a goal, something that's relatively safe, and then a very safe option. Apply early, right? At least a week before the deadline. Again, remember the application is not processed until you pay it, right? So make sure you apply early and at least try and do that a week before the deadline, because it's important. Remember, you can still modify it after. So even if you apply early and you're like, oh, I don't want to do this program anymore, or I don't want to be accepted into a certain program, you can always modify it up to that date and a little bit after that date. Arrive on time for interviews, auditions, and portfolio presentations. So if you have some sort of supplemental information and it is an interview or it is an audition, make sure you're on time for those. It does speak to your character, right? Think finances and get organized. Start now thinking about, do I need a part-time job? What am I going to need and we'll have another financial presentation a little bit later in the year, but you need to start thinking in those finances now and getting organized in terms of what do I need for reference letters, portfolios. All those things are things you have to thinking about now, right? Because sometimes it's going to be too late. And again, so I think it's been a theme throughout, but do your research. You have to research thoroughly. Because again, and read things carefully. There might be dates and deadlines you might miss because you weren't necessarily reading things carefully, right? So make sure you're doing your research on where you would like to go. So that's it. That's our presentation on the university information. If you need more information, feel free to book an appointment with a guidance counselor. We can go over some of the information that was in here already. I know we're going to have a few Google Meet sessions in the coming days here. And we'll post those on our guidance tab, the guidance tab on the Newmarket High School website. So as you're listening to this presentation and you thought you had a few more questions that necessarily I didn't answer, or if you had just questions in general, right? Feel free to look up when those times are, and then we'll make sure we can answer those questions for you. You can also follow us on Instagram at NHS_guidance. We'll also be updating information on there, whether possible virtual open houses. I know I've been working hard to try and possibly maybe get some virtual rep meets, but I know with how things are going, it's been kind of a little bit difficult to organize. So we're trying to make sure you are informed, right? So if you want to follow NHS_guidance again on Instagram, you'll see some updates there and information from us, whether that's university, college, apprenticeship, workplace, important dates as you're going through, right? We'll be posting some of those, so make sure to follow us there.
And again, you can always visit us in the guidance office or book an appointment through Teach Assist, right? So thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. And have a great year.